Welcome. I'm Jim Williams, and I'm going to be hosting the basketball documentary today with Kevin Lynch and two friends of mine, Rob Wassenaar and Rick Rather, that were teammates of mine at Edina High School. And we have a lot to talk about with the rivalry with Jefferson, but what I thought we'd start with is, Rob, maybe going back to the early days when we were little and playing Jefferson, and it seemed like we were playing them about every week.
We played constantly, and if you remember, you have a tournament on the weekend, then you have seasons and games that happen during the week, and it was just fun. We had, I think, a really healthy respect for the guys. We got to know them, whether it was Tim or Ray, the other guys that we just knew it was always going to be a tough game, whether it was at a Golden Valley tournament, Wayzata, Edina, or Bloomington.
We really didn't know where Ray was going to be. He was
well,
going to be at one school or another.
That's right. He was with Kennedy, and that he always played. We got to know him. Nowadays there's so much of a scouting report that everybody's got with advanced scouts, and people are going to go say, well, this is a tendency. We already knew it just by playing the game against the guys.
And then, Rick, you came in 8th grade.
I did.
And do you remember anything in particular about the early days playing against Jefferson?
Yeah, I mean, what I remember is, you look at the Sunday bracket, and you know who's going to be there at the end. It's going to be us and Jefferson and Armstrong and maybe Woodbury. It's just going to be kind of those four teams, and you really look forward to it. I mean, that's where the fun really starts. We all just kind of work our way through the tournament, and then Sunday hits, and it's, all right, who's going to win?
And then we move into our sophomore year of high school, and so that would be the 80-81 year. And you two did get to play a little varsity basketball. Do you remember anything about playing them those seasons?
I think I was on the bench most of the time, but at my sophomore year, I think I got 10 starts only because we had a senior go down with a bad knee. But I don't think I got many minutes in the Jefferson games.
How about you, Rob?
I definitely did not. Rick was much better. He could jump. I couldn't. So I had to stay outside, and I made the section team, but we didn't play Jefferson. My claim to fame as a sophomore at Edina West was my first time out on the court. I got the ball outside what would have been the three-point line, before the three-point line, and didn't know what to do, and somebody told me to shoot, and I shot, and it was a nice air ball. I think that's one of the reasons why I didn't play against the good teams my sophomore year.
So that year, Jefferson makes a trip to the state tournament, and their most notable play at the time was John Lynch. And they're coming into the 81-82 season. And if you look back at that time, Edina combines, West and East come together. Mm-hmm. That year, I believe, was Lincoln's last year. Lincoln left. And then I think the following year, Hopkins merged. So there was a lot of different things going on. So do you guys remember anything in particular about when Edina merged? We got a new coach. We had to go to a different gym. Anything in particular you remember about the merger?
When you're growing up playing with your guys, we talked earlier about playing against Jefferson. We had played with all of our guys, and whether it was on the east side or west side of Edina, we still were knowing each other, and we played with each other. And in the basketball program, specifically, Rick, you mentioned this earlier, that most of the basketball guys were from the west side. There were some really key contributors that came from the east side, but they were one year younger than us. So we, in terms of a basketball program, it was a relatively seamless deal. The new coach was great, actually. It worked out really well, really respected Coach Savory. We had some good friends. Coach Fenunger was kind of the west side guy for us. And so the combination and the connection was actually fairly seamless from us in a culture of a program.
So that season, the first game, we played Jefferson. I believe it was over here. Is that right?
This is 81-82.
81-82. Yeah, I think it was.
Second game of the season for Jefferson.
Okay.
It might have been you guys' first. I don't know.
Okay. Well, the first game is a close game. The second one goes into double overtime. Anything you guys remember about the players, the situation, the game, and your junior year?
Well, I think what I do remember is just the overall feeling that Jefferson has been through the battles more than we have, and they've been at those really tight points in games at high levels more than we had. And it was just one of those things where you just kind of felt they got the upper hand in this deal. And we were young, and we were going to give it everything we got, but we just didn't really have the experience that they had at that last minute of a game when it really counts. But it helped us the following year, but we didn't have it really that junior year.
In my mind, as I look back, I think I was a little naive. We were a little naive, and because we hadn't been in the big moments as a high school team, we didn't know how to react, but we also didn't know how to be nervous, in a sense. We didn't know we should be nervous. Specifically in this place, this was a great packed house, and Jefferson fans they're the enemy, but they were good enemies. They were great enemies, and you love playing in a crowd, against a crowd. And so I think that fueled us both. We played really well. And so we walked away thinking, man, we lost, but we can hang.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't get over the hump, but that we learned a good lesson. I think the big thing that I remember from those days is one guy, John Lynch. Clearly the number one guy. He could jump, he could shoot, he could use both hands. It was almost like he was ambidextrous. And, guarding him I thought I could jump a little bit, but I stopped halfway up and he kept going. So that's the fun memory from those games.
How about other players on the Jefferson team in 80, 81, 82, your junior year? Like Greg Montbryan was a senior that year.
Yeah.
Mark Nelson was a big, strong, 6'4", 240 football player type of guy. Dave Kingery, any of those names sound familiar? Remember those players? You must have played against them.
Yeah, they sound familiar, but I just don't remember a lot of their strengths and stuff like that, and how they did in the games. Do you remember?
Well, Greg was a guard.
Right.
Yep, and he handled the ball. He made a couple big shots against us. I kind of remember that, just the nature of the games. It was just an overall big battle. And we knew that we were kind of the young guys in that sense, and we were the underdog, and we had to beat those guys. And I remember Greg, but quite honestly, I didn't guard John the whole game. I wasn't that guy, but the focus of our game was to stop John, and obviously we didn't do it well enough to win the game.
I just remember being undersized, and I'd get myself in foul trouble because the whole goal. For me, it was don't give up the space.
Yeah.
Push it. And that just gets you in trouble a lot of times with the refs. But yeah, they were bigger and stronger. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I remember that.
So Jefferson wins the 81-82 title, and you talk about the size. They ended up beating Duluth East, I think, at 2 7-footers.
One 7-footer, and his twin brother was like 6'7", 6'8", so they were big.
And I think Jefferson's tallest guy might have been your brother. Might have been Johnny.
No, Steve Hill, 6'5".
6'5". So as Edina goes into the 82-83 season, you guys mentioned the size situation. So why don't you explain what boost you got from your junior class?
Yeah, very much so, and even the sophomore class too.
Mm-hmm.
We had we brought up a guy named Rich Cohen who was 6'9", 6'10", somewhere in that range. Then we had a bunch of 6'7" kids. Then we had a wing, Steve Schroeder, that was 6'6". So all of a sudden we became a completely different team, and we became a team that now the coach wants to set up some half-court offense, where before, let's just get down the court and see if we can score as fast as possible, because we just couldn't do a half-court offense against a bigger team. So we really changed considerably.
Yeah, we did, and I think it mixed really well because the older guys, the seniors, could shoot a little bit from the outside, and now we put some size underneath. Rick could go back and forth with the wing, and because he could jump. But Schroeder and Helgren and Cohen were fantastic, and it was a phenomenal ad. Great dudes too, and they fit well with the culture. The team chemistry that we had. It was a really good combination, a good change year.
And you look back at that era. That era's style was a lot different. 2-2-1 full court press. Z was over here, the 1-1-3. The 2-3 zone, we had the matchup.
Yeah.
A very different style, and the games were all very low scoring usually, typically, weren't they?
No
Too,
three-point shot.
too low
three
scoring,
points.
yeah, and this is, that dates us significantly, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And we had some guys that could shoot in the three. Rick and I could both shoot from the three-point range, and Pat, but the nature of the game was slow it down, control the tempo, and slow the tempo. Our matchup zone was, I think we did it really well. That was one thing we did exceedingly well. But we were so focused on it that the other teams could change the tempo of the game. And I think we could have probably run a little bit more than we did, but I think it served us well. Our matchup zone was,
I agree.
it suited us very well.
I just remember too many practices working against, taking the ball out against full court presses. And it's just, a lot of standing around. You got a 2.5 hour practice, and we're working on where to be when the ball goes here and there. And that was the nature of the game back then.
So you come into your senior year. It was a tight-knit group. You two are captains, correct?
Yep.
And we have a very tight-knit group, get along really well. We know who the competition is going to be. And essentially, I think back in that day, there were probably about 3 or 4 teams in the conference that were good. And then there were some that just weren't. So now I think you see more uniformity around the conferences now. But back then, you're good and you're bad. But anyways, so we're getting to these games with Jefferson, and both schools have been very successful. 9th grade, 10th grade, we had a lot of success, so did they. And then we get to that first game here in 82, 83. They've come off a state title. They've got a 37-game winning streak. It was being promoted as the big game of the year.
Yeah.
What do you guys recall walking into the gym that night?
Well, let me say this before you guys start answering. I read something where people at that time, this was written about right before that game, that it was the biggest Lake Conference game in 15 years. It's since the Edina Richfield games in the late 60s.
Really?
And that was written about. I read a couple articles where these guys were talking about that. That's how big of a game it was. So you guys are 10-0, rated 5th. Jefferson's defending state champs, rated 2nd. They're also undefeated.
Yeah.
And just like Jimmy said, what do you guys remember kind of the lead up to that big game here at Jefferson?
Well, make no mistake, the pressure was on Jefferson. They're riding the state tournament, the big win streak. We're still kind of figuring out our new team and how we're going to play the game and stuff with this new height that we hadn't had before. So in a way, we're playing with a little bit of house money. We're ranked lower. Nobody really kind of knows who we are as much as them, and so we were probably a little bit more loose than anything.
It's tingling when I find it's kind of fun just being back on the court. I mean, I remember standing up there and the crowd is going nuts and the bands are playing and it's funny, Kevin. I didn't know that. I didn't read that article, but nowadays it would have been on Twitter and Instagram and everything would have been popping everywhere, and people would have been saying, "Hey, go get him, kill him, whatever." That would have been hilarious. It would have been fun. I didn't know how big it was, other than it was big for us. In the next game, this is the biggest competition we're going to have, the biggest game of the year, and it was on the opposing court. And so I remember coming out of the locker room, we're walking up there, and I'm talking to Paul Kemble, another one of our shooting guards, young to me. He had kind of his eyes ready, and was like, "Oh, we got to figure out something to loosen up." So I said something really stupid to crack a joke, and I think it helped me just say, "Okay, it's not that big of a deal. It's a big deal, but let's not get too nervous. Let's get on the court and let's let the game settle it." And you always want to have some sort of a memory or a click to relax and put a smile on your face and, hey, let's enjoy it, but let's go play hard and let's steal it from them. That was kind of our motion, the idea that we weren't expected to win, but let's go do it anyway.
Yeah, it's like any game where you got nerves. It's 2 trips down the court, and those nerves kind of go away, and now you're just playing basketball.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the way we were.
Yeah.
It went away quickly.
Yeah, it did.
What do you guys remember about the atmosphere? I mean, they actually pulled out the bleachers over
They
here.
did.
I was not at that game. It's
You missed it, man.
I know.
You're in detention, probably.
I was in detention. No, I had a traveling basketball game then. You guys
Yeah.
got to understand that my older brothers and their high school careers were huge to me.
Yeah.
And I used to kind of live and die with, and we'll get to that a little later on in March when you guys played Jefferson again.
Yeah.
But, so I missed the game that night when Jefferson lost, but I heard that this was like just the biggest crowd they've ever had. I think in the history of the school was that game that night. They pulled out the end bleachers and it was just packed everywhere.
Well, I'll tell you a funny story because I was playing JV as a senior. And at halftime, we came out and it was packed. It was pretty full.
They were cheering you on, weren't they?
I mean, a JV game, you walk out, you got 15
Right.
people in the crowd.
Right, right.
And there was a charge at the end of the game that one of our guys took, and our whole crowd just went up. And I was like, holy moly. I mean, it was like a varsity crowd for a JV game.
Yeah.
And then when we came out on the floor, I remember going and shaking Mike Hansen's hand because I was playing against him in the JV game. And we just had a very cordial rivalry, a lot of respect, I think, like you guys said.
No doubt. It's electric. Kevin, you've been in so many more games than we have, but there's something you can't explain to people that haven't experienced it. You jump a little higher, you run a little bit faster, you're in tune a little bit more. You're just
There's a real
You're excited.
real connection, crowd connection. I think in basketball that's different than obviously football, obviously baseball, where
Yeah.
they're really far away. In basketball, you're right there. I mean, your personality is showing to the crowd's showing it to you, and it's.
Well, speaking
it's
about
awesome.
right there, we have a picture we're going to show you guys, and it happened about right over there, and it's faint.
Midcourt?
But I think you guys will remember this moment.
So this is that first game at Jefferson. If you guys kind of,
Oh, yeah.
I think that. Do you remember that picture? And there's the
do.
Jefferson
Yeah.
crowd
Yeah.
getting on you guys
Yeah, I got.
during that game.
Yep.
What does
Yeah, I
that
went down.
Looking at that right now, what does that make you? Do you guys remember the play? What do you think of when you see that?
I think it was a foul on me. I think it was a foul on me going for a pass and just being over aggressive, knocking the receiver off and
On the sideline,
hit the ground, and that was the intensity of the game at that point. I mean, it's almost like I'm getting a little too close to the fans. It's like, hey, this is our court. Yeah, I think that was the play. What, Jim? Do you remember that? at
Yeah,
all?
I think you were going for a steal, and
Yeah.
you fouled a guy. Yeah.
Can't believe you hacked him, man.
Yeah, well, I had a few of those.
Hey, this is a great picture. I actually I remember it. I used to have a photo of that, a copy of the photo, but it's a great picture of the crowd is that close. I mean, it looks like it's 18 inches away.
18 inches away,
Some guy's
yeah.
barking at Rick, trying to get in his ear, and that's the beauty of playing in an opposing court. You get enthused by the antagonism of the other team, and you just want to work harder to get them, and just helping a buddy out, man, going after the ball. Let's get it up and we'll get going.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Well, and I look back at our team and the Jefferson team. It just had people on it playing on those teams that never got rattled. They were always had a lot of poise. Is what I come to think about. All the guys, that type of situation. Nowadays you don't know what might happen with some kids, but just a lot of poise on both sides.
Yeah.